Hello everyone, welcome. Welcome to Tea with G, aka satsang, aka communion with yourself. Nice to be here with you all on this chilly but sunny day up in it's called the Sunshine Coast of Canada, over near the ocean. Lots of lakes and streams and things around here. So I didn't have anything that came to mind this morning or yesterday as I was getting ready to do this today. No subject came to mind. So that usually means two things. One of two things. One is it's just going to be open. And the other is maybe there's some people here who have some important questions that need to be answered and have never gotten them answered before. And in either case, I'm going to invite you all to do something I don't normally do during Tea with G. And that's just to start this out with a short meditation. So if you can join me, I'll keep my eye on people as they join. If you can join me by just closing your eyes and take 3 deep, slow breaths. Those that are just joining, we're just doing a short meditation to start us out today while I wait for questions. Starting with just a few deep breaths. And pay attention to the subtleties of feeling, the subtle effect that simply a focused attention on breathing has. 3 deep breaths like this is actually recognized by psychologists as a parasympathetic nervous system regulation, which is a nice long way of saying it calms you down. It helps us get back into that state that is not worried, not anxious, not fearful, not assuming the other shoe is going to drop with a foot in it. So once again, as people are joining, I'm just doing a short meditation to start us off today. And the big question in meditation that people have is, where do I put my attention? Well, you can start by putting it on the breath. That has been a focal point of attention for meditation for thousands of years. And it's a very good place to just start. And with your eyes closed, as I often mention that with about 80% of what we normally experience in meditation, that we experience during the day, during a meditation with your eyes closed, is completely eliminated. And the attention, because our attention is so used to going to different places, it's so used to always jumping from one thing to the next, that it's going to look for some place to focus its attention. Now, when we first start to meditate, if you've never meditated before, you'll find that it's going to go to thought streams, patterns of thinking that are recurring. And even really after many, many years of practice, it's still going to do that. Because most of us here live in a very mentally oriented culture. A lot of thinking, a lot of conceptualizing, a lot of talking. So again, for those just joining, we're just doing a short meditation. So closing your eyes brings the attention inward automatically. And so the first place to intentionally focus it is simply on the breath. It's a beautiful place because it's one of the few, if maybe the only one of the automatic mechanisms of the body that we can actually influence. When we don't think about it, it's automatic. But when we do, we can actually speed it up, slow it down. There's a whole science of pranayama that goes with that. All sorts of different exercises just for the breath. And then what I invite people to do is to let your inner eye just expand a bit, to try and take in more of your body, more of this experience of the body, which is really the direct experience of being alive, of existing, of being a conscious, self-aware entity. And notice there's sensation really pouring through every inch of your body. But try to keep your breaths slow and measured, even while your attention has moved out a little bit. You may want to simply scan very, very, very gently and just kind of go from your feet up, checking in with each part of your body to see how it feels. Doesn't have to take a long time. Just a moment. Note if there's a part of your body that seems in distress, if it's contracted, or if there's some kind of pain or tension being carried there. If it is, just give it permission to relax. Sink into it. You'll notice that if you do run across some kind of tension or something in the body, there'll be an impulse to want to get rid of it or move away from it. Perfectly natural. And I'm just going to advise in this kind of meditation that you do the exact opposite, that you actually move towards it. You bring a loving awareness to it while you continue to breathe. And now see if you can focus your attention on something that is far, far more subtle. It's so subtle, in fact, there's no object there that you can actually look at. Your body is an object you can look at. It too, there's subtle sensations and emotions running through it, many of which, if not all, most of which, we don't even have names for. They're so subtle, so nuanced. But what I'm going to invite you to see if you can put your attention on is something that's even more subtle than that. So subtle, in fact, it's not an object at all. And that's the sense of your own being. The sense I am. The sense of your own existence. It doesn't get any more subtle than this. Just the sense that you are. The raw, pure essence. And of course, before any of the other experiences can happen, whether they be very subtle or very overt, this has to be here first, doesn't it? It's a simple recognition that prior to my existence, nothing exists. And with my existence, everything exists. I don't want to plant thoughts or words in your mind. I want you to look for yourself. See if what I say is true. Can anything exist without you there to bear witness to it? We can imagine that it does, certainly. But does that mean Does that qualify for being your truth that it exists, whether I'm seeing it or not? It's almost like division by zero. It's undefined. If I'm not here, at least for me, there is nothing, including me. But if I'm here, which clearly you are, it goes without saying, it's self-evident, even though you can't put your finger on it, then everything else exists. This is such a primary relationship that was noticed millennia ago, going back to the Vedas in India, the earliest teachings, spiritual teachings that we know of. Just noticing this very, very subtle sense, and this seeming enigma that if I'm not here, nothing exists. And out of that the question comes, what is the nature of me? And what is the nature of everything I experience? In Zen, it's boiled down to two very simple questions. Who am I? And what is this? There are no questions or inquiries that are more profound and significant and have engaged more people for more time than those two very simple questions. Who am I? What is this? So you'll find that you can't really grab on to that sense of your own being. Even in meditation, that you'll find the attention trying to find some object it can focus on. But when you're both the subject and the object, what can it focus on? You fall into a very different kind of knowing. That's the right word for it. Again, those of you who are just joining, I'm doing it was going to be a brief meditation. It's a bit longer now. So just with eyes closed, we're just putting our attention on the simple fact of being. The simple, undeniable, self-evident fact of your being. Alrighty. Take a nice deep breath. Move your body a little bit. And when you're ready, open your eyes. I have homemade lemonade today with just lemon water and stevia. Oh, Nazrin, so good to see you. There's Jay, there's Carl, hello, Glenn. I don't think I've seen you before. There's Sally and Ava, David and Elaine. Hello to all of you. Hello, hello, hello to all of you. Brent in LA. Also Patricia, who's in LA. Ken Cho, Joyce. I don't know what, and I fear of I don't know what listening to this. Don't think I can continue. I feel scared and fear of I don't know what listening to this. Just take some deep breaths, Joyce. Just take some deep breaths. It is perfectly natural when fear comes up for us to want to run away as far as we can. I mean, the fight or flight, right? It's completely natural, can even seem to be overpowering for whatever it is that the mind has decided this is a fear of. But remember, the mind isn't usually correct about that kind of thing. Because immediately as the fear comes up, the mind immediately wants to get an object so it can deal with it. But the object it chooses is often wrong, because oftentimes our fear is really an echo from the past. We're reacting to something that isn't really happening now, but happened before. And the only way for that to be healed is that we turn a loving awareness towards the fear. And I say a loving awareness. We're not trying to torment ourselves or anything like that. We're simply trying to bring our attention to some part of us that's scared and needs love. And it's better to walk towards something that needs love than to run away from it, because it just makes it feel more isolated, which makes it feel more afraid, which makes it want to run away even more, and you get kind of into this spiral. So just see if you can follow my voice, and just sit for a moment and notice the feeling, the sensation that we call fear as it's running through the body, without labeling it. See if you can just be with it, just as a sensation. No story, no object, just a series of sensations running through the body. And breathe. Breathe deeply, let it out through your mouth slowly. Clearly, something in the nervous system did get triggered. And taking a few deep breaths is a way of basically bringing the system back into the state of what's called the parasympathetic state, or the vagal state. I think that's called the vagal state, where we're okay, we're safe, everything is fine. And hopefully you're still here with me. If you are, please tell me what's going on. Let me go back to the top here. Let's see. Roberto says, I've been going through my multiple fears lately, but I'm not aware of what I did in order to do so. Is it possible that one does not have to do anything at all until what has to happen happens? What made me feel fear to death now makes me laugh. Not all fears, but some that were very engraved in me. Very good. Those of us who have known Roberto for a while now are just totally blown away by his progress, by how much you have grown. That the fear of death makes you laugh. And is it possible that one does not have to do anything at all? We don't actually do the work. Truth, love, does the work. All we have to do is show up consistently. So when we give loving attention, my foot's falling asleep. When we give loving attention to whatever happens to be going on in our body, like in that meditation, we were just watching, we were just noticing. We weren't trying to fix anything. We weren't there to make repairs. We weren't the repairman. And very naturally, when you do, the very act of turning towards it is an act of love. And it's an act of truth, because you turn towards it seeking the truth of it. We're not just trying to make it go away. We're trying to find out what's really there. And, imagine a friend coming to you who's in distress. What would you do? You just sit with them and go, well, tell me, talk to me about this. What's going on? You wouldn't run away. You wouldn't push them away. You wouldn't, get away from here. Go do a program or something. Go meditate. You'd sit with them very kindly. And it is that act that embodies love. So what's really doing the work is the love. And the truth that there actually isn't anything to fear in this moment. And what the body is assuming is going to happen, did happen in the past, but isn't happening now. And it can gradually, gently, through enough love, let go of the assumption that something bad is going to happen. Now, this is not necessarily something that happens fast. I still have, to this day, 50 years after my first awakening, I still have stuff comes up that makes me do this, that sends the shudder through me. Sometimes things that I've done, which deserve a really big facepalm. I go, oh dear, I really did do that, didn't I? I thought that was true? Oh, good Lord. So the best strategy is to simply be present and not really trying to do anything and just watch what's happening. There's always something happening. So if you're watching what's happening, then something's going to come up and you give it the loving attention. And this is just the process that goes on repetitiously, just over and over and over again. And eventually, this life or the next, the whole well of things of triggers will run dry. Sometimes it happens very quickly. Sometimes it's very gradually over time. For me, it's been gradually over time. Perhaps that's just because my early life was so very traumatic. They say the first 15 years have the biggest effect on you, and the first 15 years of my life were pure hell. So it doesn't surprise me that the various points in my life when I've had those great blissful awakenings, that it hasn't eradicated everything in a single stroke. Boy, that is an outcome devoutly to be desired. However, if that isn't the case for you, then just remaining present, because that presence is love. When I go into the meditation and you're sitting there just trying to put your attention on who you are, on just the very simple fact of being, that is love. That's love enacting itself. That's love asking the biggest question it can, which is, who am I? And the second biggest question, what is all this? Now, how do we see those things if we're looking at them through the eyes of love, as opposed to the eyes of fear, or the eyes of resistance, or the eyes of greed, trying to get something from it? So, yes, some are deeply engraved, aren't they? Which means you can speak with authority. You can talk with absolute authority that this process works, but it doesn't necessarily work quickly. And I can remember the endless questions I used to get from you, and now they're very few and far between. It's a testimony to how much you have grown. So, I think I'll move on to the next question. Thanks, Roberto. It's always a delight to hear from you. Marcel, I didn't say hello to you. Hello. Brent and Carl's in Ireland, and Jay. I was listening to Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and I was listening about the practice of Zazen, which is, Zazen, for those of you who don't know, is basically just seated meditation, as opposed to walking meditation. Zen means meditation, and Za means sitting. Like Zafu is the cushion they sit on. Zafu, fu being the cushion, as in futon, right? So you can see where the words go. Futon is a couch you sit on. So I think I understood what the practice was about, even though it was different from the language used here. I practiced Zazen, and the practice is one of, there's a variety of ways of doing it, and there's not one particular way of doing it. Sometimes it's just clearing your mind and staring at a wall, literally staring at a wall. You've probably seen some of the practices of Zen where they'll be sitting, there's actually little risers around the Zendo where they will meet in the middle for a Dharma talk, but when they meditate, they go up onto these risers and they face the wall. And in fact, the last time I attended a Zen meditation, it was a Kuan school. It wasn't the Kuan school. It was not the soto which faced the wall, and did the same thing. When it came time to meditate, we all got up and turned around and faced the opposite direction of the center. So the focus was completely away from everything except, now in the beginning, some kind of an object. It may be just your breath. It may be your eyes are open and you find a point on the wall and you focus on it. It may be a koan practice. A koan practice would be simply, I'd be meditating on, who am I? Every time you keep bringing the question back. Sometimes you'd say it in your mind, but if you could go beyond that, it's just the desire to know who I am. Who am I really? And then you'll notice, when you're holding that question, that the mind will present all sorts of images of you, stories and past experiences and memories and associations, and the whole body-mind emotion complex will be right in front of you, and you go, well, that can't be it because I'm looking at it. So that cannot possibly be me. That doing that once isn't enough to make the mind kind of give up the ghost and just be and exit. Mara isn't that easily discouraged. But it is the thing you're doing over and over and over again. Now, if the Zen master has given you another koan, maybe a different koan, why did Bodhidharma come from the West or something like that, then you, and even the answer, the oak tree in the garden, that's what you would ponder, the oak tree in the garden. Come from the West, the oak tree in the garden. And there'd just be this urge to penetrate the koan. So that's another form of it. And then there's just a plain old ordinary sitting in absolute silence, just quieting the mind. Every time the mind gets loud, you come back to this central focal point. Usually there's some kind of focal point. The focal point may be just the sense of your own being, like I used during this meditation. It started with the breath, moved to the whole body, and then I invited you to just put the attention on something you can't actually grasp as an object. I don't consider myself to be an expert on Zen meditation. There's an enormous amount of subtlety and difference and variation, and every Zen master is going to do it a little bit differently. I was at a retreat about 6 months ago where they used a process called dyads, which is you sit across from somebody and they have their koan to work on. It's going to be, who am I? What is this? Why am I here? There was like 4 or 5 you could choose from, and you chose it. And for the next 3 days, that's all you pondered was, who am I? And then the way it would start is you'd be sitting across from somebody, and it would go on for 40 minutes. And the person would say to you, they would ask you your koan. They go, who are you? And then they would sit there in absolute silence. So they become the focal point. And then whatever comes to mind, you voice to them. So instead of just dismissing it, you voice it to the person sitting across from you. They never say a word. They don't react. They remain almost expressionless as us human beings can possibly get. So that you're just allowing them, you're holding the space for them to be in that private little practice. But you're giving them a place that they can focus, that the energy has some place to go. And after the 40 minutes, the bell rings and you switch sides. After that, there's like a 20-minute break, and then you sit down with somebody else and you do it again for 3 days. Sounds really boring, doesn't it? And there are moments of utter boredom, but then there's those moments when suddenly it just breaks through. One time and the last time I just started giggling. It's like, oh yeah, of course. It all just kind of vanishes. And that's why the dyads have been adopted by at least this Zen master that I know of, and the Zen master that was they kind of co-run this one particular organization. One's in London and one is in Portland. Yeah, Portland, Oregon. So does that answer every question you could possibly have about Zen, Jay? Water in my beard. Got water in my beard. Oh, Nazarene, so good to see you. There's Sylvia. Joyce, are you still here? Let me scroll down to the bottom really quick to see if Joyce left us. Well, no response from her. Maybe she did actually leave. That's too bad. That's too bad. But I certainly understand it. There have been plenty of times I've been in circumstances and all I wanted to do was get out of there. And I had no idea what I was scared of. I had no idea what I was reacting to. And all I wanted to do is get out of there. And sometimes I just did. Sometimes, and sometimes, discretion is the better part of valor, right? Sometimes you just have to remove yourself from the situation, which is fine if then, having removed yourself, you honor yourself and you honor what happened, that you then, outside of the actual trigger, you go back and visit it. Because you don't want that stone left unturned. You don't want that to be running your life, right? When some little trigger from the past comes up, makes you act in a particular way now, the way you're acting now is completely inappropriate for now, because you're reacting to something that happened in the past as if it was happening in the present, which means you're no longer present, which means you no longer have any kind of the resources to effectively and creatively deal with whatever happens to be happening. And so perhaps she'll come back and watch the replay. So Ken Show and Paula, David in the lane, relaxing meditation. Oh, I'm glad. Very good. There's Marie, Sally, Mystic Poet. Hello, my chic and everyone from France. Thanks for the letter, Remedy of Negative Self-Talk. Oh, you're very, very welcome. You're very welcome about that. That was a kind of a last-minute decision, and that was the one I actually did want to send out, and the wrong one that was only half done, got sent out. Technology strikes again. She said, I'd like to ask if what you said can be applied in the case of these negative ideas about something outside, government systems, laws. Can I just deny it from the place of I am? Well, the short answer is absolutely yes, because you're never actually dealing with the government, the systems, the laws. Now, this may sound strange because, yeah, of course we're dealing with the government systems, the laws. And on one level you are. But remember, we never deal with anything or anyone as they are. We only deal with our concept of them. Now, I have complete and total control, if I exercise it with practice, over all my concepts of everyone. And that includes governments, systems, laws, because my belief is this government is wrecking my life, or this system is interfering with me, or these laws are onerous. Right? Now, your belief in that is what impacts your life, not the actual systems themselves. Now, I'm not saying that means we shouldn't do our best to change systems that are unjust, and the world is full of unjust systems right now. I think pretty much every country in the world has an unjust and illegitimate system. But now, I have to guard very carefully what I let into my consciousness as influential, because it is me allowing it in and believing it to be influential which creates the influence. It is not the external thing. How we feel inside is not a result of what happens outside. We think it is. And because we think it is, we're forever seeking after something outside, a relationship or a career or creativity or fun or a different state of mind, enlightenment. All of these things are trying to seek something outside of ourselves, thinking that if I can adjust the circumstances, then I'll feel better inside. And you will have a momentary sense of relief. But it's not the answer. In order to be truly free of governments, free of systems, free of laws, truly, truly free, one has to come to terms with the fact that I'm only dealing with my concept of the world. I'm not dealing with the world as it is. As a matter of fact, what is it? Nobody knows. Nobody knows what it is. Everybody's only dealing with their own concept at all times. It's kind of like trying to define the world as it is. Imagine you're driving in your car, buzzing along. It's a more modern car, so you've got GPS or you've got Siri talking to you, telling you where to go, right? But it's this beautiful, clear day, and it's just lovely. And you're driving along, and you could see for 200 miles. But then all of a sudden, the clouds, the sky goes gray, everything goes down, and suddenly you find yourself in a fog, and you can only see maybe 20 feet in front of you. Right? So if you move at all, right, you'd have to rely completely on these instruments to guide you, wouldn't you? Let's say you could see far enough ahead that you're going to keep driving, right? But you have no idea what's out there whatsoever. But you've got this little device here that's telling you about what's out there, and when it's telling you about what's out there is enough for you to navigate through it. Well, instead of the device, think of your physical senses. They tell you enough, but they cannot tell you what it is. If you study science enough, you don't have to study it a lot, just enough to realize that what it does is, never tells us what anything is. It only tells it what it does is what it does. Everything is about predictive behavior. And so it sees there's a certain pattern that forms. The pattern operates consistently. A bunch of people check and say, yes, this pattern is operating consistently. We can trust that, at least relatively speaking, that pattern is going to be consistent, and we can call that a law. But what is it that is behaving consistently? Nobody knows. So imagine all of the world as it is, a complete and total unknowable. All we can grasp from the world is what we get from our senses. And our senses pick up a lot, but they only pick up a fraction of what's actually out there and what's actually happening. We can only see on this one level of kind of hard objects, right? Things that are... we can't see the molecular structure of it, which we now know is there, that there's this atomic and molecular and atomic and cellular, and it keeps going down all the way to the point where all matter, all objects disappear completely, and you only have these fields, they call them quantum fields, that for some reason it excites the field, and a particle or a wave appears, an excitation of the field, and a wave appears, and this is what we call matter. But nobody even knows what the field is. I mean, a field, it's a nice word, right? It's a nice word for I don't know. So if we grasp that and recognize that on a certain level, I recognize certain things about governments and systems and laws, and I recognize them as a matter of convention. We've all agreed, okay, we're going to stop at red lights, right? Now, there's nothing inherent in life that says every time you see red, you should stop. There's nothing about that tells us anything, other than the fact our eyes see red light better than all of the other light forms. It's the color we see first. So it's the most striking to us. But other than that, that doesn't mean lights. It could be green could mean stop, and red could mean go. And that would become the convention then. There's nothing absolute about it. So we simply then deal with, well, what is my concept of it, given the convention of it? And Buddha pointed out quite effectively that if it's just a convention and it doesn't create any suffering, no problem. When it creates suffering, there is a problem. Now, when we talk about laws and systems and governments, and it creates suffering in us, we now have to go back to the Buddha and say, okay, I'm suffering. He says, there is suffering. What's the cause of suffering? Now the mind will say, well, the cause of the suffering is the goddamn government and all these laws and these stupid systems that only work for a handful of people. Right? But that's not what Buddha would say. Buddha would say that's not the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering is you, your perspective, how you react to it, and how you see yourself. Ultimately, it all comes down to how we see ourselves. Myself living in this world that I don't even know what's there, being guided by my GPS, which is basically my higher sense, my higher intelligence, to get wherever it is I'm trying to get to. In which case, in this case, we're trying to get to peace. Just a sense of equanimity. Mystic Poet continued, I was advised of meditation updating memories, going to that moment and talk to that girl who was afraid for her safety of her father and afraid of her father. He used to scream on me and hit me. Yes, I will often do that in with people in private sessions and the like. Sometimes I've done it in group settings as well, because it can be an effective technique for kind of calling that part of us out of the shadows, which is shivering, which still believes that there's a father there that's going to hit on you and scream at you. Only in this case, it's projected that father that really did that stuff. It projected it on governments, systems, and laws. So now you're experiencing the government not as just as the government, just as this tool that we could, with a little bit of will, change to be whatever we want it to be. It's now a projection of the Father who screams at you and hits you and denies you things and doesn't take care of you and doesn't care about you. But that's not what they are. That is pure projection. So the Buddha would say, look at that. That's the cause of your suffering. And so, yeah, we go down and we look. We take that little girl who's still terrified of her father. We take her into our arms and we stroke her hair. We say, yep, it really did happen. He really did all that stuff to him. But guess what? He's not here anymore. He can't touch you anymore. I'm here. I'm taking care of you. There's a whole way of going about it. There's a whole language behind it and the like. It's kind of my take on the whole inner child work. And also another thing called matrix re-imprinting, which is a thing Carl, I can't remember his last name now, a German fellow who does EFT. So, how's that, Mystic Poet? Time for a drink. Jay, although, what did he mean by not holding on to the joys and difficulties that arise out of the practice? Is he talking about the emotional states? Yes. We're back to Zazen. Sorry, I didn't see the second half of his thing until I'd started on Mystic Poet. We're back at Zazen. Well, whatever comes up is going to be a reaction, is going to be some kind of reaction to the meditative process itself. And the meditative process, remember, is diving deeply into who you really are. And the more deeply it dives into who you really are, the more who you really are not is going to be coming to the surface and asking for attention. And that can mean extreme difficulties come up, fear, right, with no obvious cause, difficulties, strenuousness. There's times when I meditate and I can't keep my focus on anything for more than 2 seconds. I go, what the hell's up with that? But I can sit back and go, okay, I'm going to observe the fact, I'm going to be completely with the fact that I cannot focus my attention on anything right now. And I'm just going to let it be there because I'm aware of it. It is not aware of me. And the same thing would happen if you had a moment of extreme joy. Let's say that the heavens parted and Krishna was there talking to you in person. And it was just this incredible bliss. Yeah, enjoy it, by God. Suck all the fun out of it you can get. But notice that it had a beginning, which means it's going to have an end, and it's not you. It's something appearing to you, which is something everybody should take note of, because we often are in meditation and various spiritual practices so we can get the big blissful experience thinking that's what it's all about. It's not what it's all about. About is discovering that which is there no matter what the experience is. And be the experience extremely painful or extremely blissful, it is only an experience, which means, like all things, it will pass. It will come and it will go. What doesn't come and go? It reminds me of Papaji's, one of Papaji's moments of enlightenment when because he used to play with Krishna like it was a real person, like just like you and me meeting in person and shaking hands. He would play with Krishna from the time he was a child, even into his adulthood. He would do that. And he was at Arunachala. He was visiting Ramana Maharshi, and he was up in Arunachala, the mountain, just playing with Krishna. And as he came down, Ramana was coming up, and they said hello. He says, "Well, what were you doing?" And he told him he was playing with Krishna. And he said to him, he says, "Is Krishna here now?" He says, "No." He says, "Anything that comes and goes cannot be real. Find what comes and doesn't come and go." That was a huge moment of awakening for, I don't remember what his real name is. He became Papaji. So yes, I think that answered the question. David Yeager, I've got a new camera and want to sell the old. It's associated with so many good experiences I've had that I feel like I'm devaluing and dishonoring it and me by selling it, letting go of the past. Well, hold on to it for a little bit. Right? Don't force yourself. Right? We force it. I need to sell it. I shouldn't be attached to things. Oh, Jesus, really? Try getting through life without getting attached to stuff. You know, getting through life. How about your spouse or girl or boyfriend or something like that? Yeah, you get attached. Of course we do. And right now, the camera's got for you all sorts of great experiences and memories and wonderful stuff. So hold on to it for a bit. Put it on your altar if you have one, right? Really honor it until you're ready to hold on to the memories and all the good experiences and all the beauty that it brought to you, and then let go of the camera, because the good experiences and the wonderfulness and all of that was in you, not in the camera. The camera was simply the facilitator for it. But the camera wasn't having a great time. The camera didn't have good experiences. And the camera is not going to feel devalued or dishonored, right? And just think of the next person who's going to get that, and all the wonderful good experiences and all the good vibe and good karma you've put into that camera for them. So that when you let it go, it'll be with a heartbreak and go, I love this camera and I'm letting it go because somebody else is going to benefit from it now. But don't rush into that. Don't just take my words and go, oh, yeah, okay, G told me it was okay. Just sit with it until that's your actual experience of it. Because it means so much to you. I don't know, if you have an altar, if you don't have an altar, make one. And all you have to have on your altar is like, you know, a candle, some incense, and the camera. Right? Because it's an altar to what matters to you in your life. And especially for you, having things that are sacred, that matter to you, and making them sacred is especially important for you because so much of that was taken away from you when you were a kid. So I think I feel you getting weepy. Oh, I love you, David. I love you. There's Peter in Italy. Very good. Good to see you, my friend. Mystic Poet, I did it. It worked. I felt there's something remains. Okay, do it again. Something I don't know what it is. Don't need to know. Just stay present. I asked myself more questions and I heard betray of the little girl, me letting her go. Should we let go of that little child because the fear also is a misguided love? No. She felt betrayed. You betrayed her, right? You didn't know any better. But you did. You first, she was betrayed by her father. You know, your father betrayed his role. If he's screaming at you and hit you and intimidating you and bullying you, he betrayed the trust that is absolutely natural between a daughter and her father. So now, what's that little girl going to do? Who does she have to turn to? No one. She has to turn to you. And you're completely incapable of taking care of it. You are the little girl. Remember, the little girl is not somebody other than you. So, oh, I did betray her. I had to abandon her because I couldn't survive. I couldn't survive. And I was a little kid. I didn't have what it took. I couldn't do it, but damn it, I can do it now. And go back to her and say, yeah, I did. I betrayed you. We betrayed each other. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to take care of myself. How could I? I was 4. I'm completely vulnerable, completely dependent upon everybody else. So it's not a misguided love. Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. Are you following this? Are you following this, Faith? Beautiful story. Beautiful story. I'm glad I could clarify that for you. Nazarene, how do we differentiate between discernment and judgment? Sometimes it can be tough. But if there's a sense of not knowing, if the sense of you're not sure, okay. So just sit with it. Okay. Which is it? Is it a judgment? Remember, judgments come from the comparison of the egoic mind. Discernment comes from the infinite mind. From the mind that has no axe to grind, that has no preferences, and doesn't judge. You just recognize, people are the way they are. I don't judge the shark for eating seals, although I wish they wouldn't. But I don't want the sharks to die either, so okay, go ahead and eat the seals, and just hope there's enough seals that they don't all get eaten. It's just the way it is. This is the way nature works. So judgment is always me comparing myself to somebody else and wanting to put myself either above them or below them. Judgment or criticism is usually, I want to put myself above them. They shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be like that. Right? Which means you don't have permission to be like that. So nobody should have permission to be like that. And I think you'll find under every judgment, there's a part of ourself that has not been really given freedom to express itself. And so it sees that quality in somebody else and then judges it. It projects its own self-criticism onto the other. And remember, we never deal with another. We only deal with our concept of the other. There's no possible way you could actually know somebody else, is there? You'd have to actually be born into their house, live their life, have every single one of their experiences. Then you could know them. But you can't do that. You can only know you. So you're judging your concept of them. It's kind of like, teenagers, they get cliquish and they say, you know what she said about you? Oh, she said this about you. And then suddenly you go, she said that about me? Oh, what a jerk. What an ass. And then you don't talk to her again. And she has no idea what's going on. Until finally you find out, well, she didn't actually say that. It was the other person that was mad at her about something and wanted to make you angry. And so this whole concept you've been holding of them is completely wrong. Teenagers and adolescents do this all the time. Right? Because we immediately grab onto something. We're so defensive and self-protective. So if you realize that the only thing you're criticizing is your own concept of somebody, and the concept of somebody is 99% you and 1% them, you go, oh, I'm really criticizing me, aren't I? I'm really judging me. And to see that, that's discernment. I see now. This is just all a play of the mind, judging another as if that's who they actually are. We have no idea what people have been through that brings about the behavior that they're exuding in this moment. We have no idea. I mean, we barely know, We have a hard time forgiving ourselves when we recognize that the only reason I'm acting the way I do is because of all the things that basically happened to me. So, it's the same thing with faith and the governments and laws and systems. We only have to deal with our concept of things. We only have to deal with our idea of who and what they are, and know for a fact that it is flawed at best and dead wrong at worst. It's just simply not who they actually are. This opens such a powerful place of compassion towards them and towards yourself, because my God, I've just been judging them and I'm judging me by this. Whatever measure you meet shall be measured again unto you. Whatever judgment I place on others, I'm actually placing it on myself. And I don't want to judge myself. I want to forgive myself. I want to find myself innocent. So thank you for that, Nazrin. Savvy Stacker. Honey GP, sorry I'm late. Baking oatmeal, apple, blueberry bread, and lost track of time. And where do you live? I want to come. That sounds absolutely fabulous. Oh my goodness. Joy says, fear is here. I found out yesterday I have terminal pancreatic cancer. So far I'm in no physical pain. Shown on the CAT scan. Endocrinologist said nothing I can do because treatment for this would be worse than living. I'm just going to invite everybody into just a moment of silent prayer for Joyce. The best I can say is, yes, the fear is going to be there. And at a time like this, first off, I hope you've gotten second opinions and the like. Maybe there is some kind of alternative treatment that would work, but I'm not a doctor or somebody who gives alternate treatments, so I can only say that as a friend would. And the other would be something that I do actually quite regularly these days, simply because I'm getting older, and that is come to peace, come to a place of peace about death. It's not the end. It is a transition from one experience, from one complex experience to another complex experience. A human life is a complex experience. It's a dream within a dream within a dream. It's filled with all sorts of events and all sorts of happenings. Some are wonderful, some are awful. And eventually, at some point, this particular complex set of happenings runs its course and it ends. And nobody knows when that's going to be, and nobody knows what's going to precipitate it. Right? I don't know. It could be tomorrow for me. I feel all sorts of things in my body that I didn't used to feel. And so far no major diagnosis, but I I have a physical exam a week from Wednesday. After so you just don't know. There's several books on death. Jack Kornfield, I think, has written one. There's, of course, the famous Tibetan Book of the Dead. Death is nothing to fear. In fact, it can be a time of enormous coming to terms with everything that we have been afraid of. Coming to terms with the people in our lives that we should embrace and forgive. It's a good time to start letting go of all the egoic identity that we've accumulated over the years. to let it all go, by intentionally, purposely let it all go, which is really the purpose of meditation right from the get-go, is to just let it go. Because it's time to let go. So I don't have any kind of diagnosis hanging over my head other than simply old age. That I know that unless I live to be 140 something, the end is much closer than the beginning. And it causes me to very consciously and conscientiously uncover any fears I have about it. Look at the world through the eyes of somebody who's a short timer. All the people that I meet, all the things that I can do while I'm still here and I'm still functioning, all the people I can touch, all the hearts that I can mend. And it actually helps me think less about me and much more about others. And the more I do that, the less fear there is. So, thank you for staying here. Thank you for staying with us, and I hope my words are comforting to you. But again, I would encourage you to look for alternative remedies. I have heard of such things. Miracles do happen. I'm just not in a position where I want to promise anything like that. So my job is to keep you open to the possibility, and also make peace with what we will eventually all have to face. In Buddhism, the meditation on death is a common one. It starts young. It's not something you wait till old age for. It's something you come to terms with. It's just the impermanence of life. And how do we find, in the midst of all this impermanence, the one thing that's actually permanent? Like I said, the things that come and go, what's the only thing that doesn't come and go? In that meditation, all the feelings and sensations and thoughts that were going on were all coming and going, sometimes at rapid pace. But what wasn't coming and going? That sense of being, that sense of my own existence, which is obviously there because the existence is real. Your existence is reality. And that will never, ever, ever change. So, if you need more from me, Joyce, please just say so. Carl, hi GP, why is it that even when I've moved beyond a limitation or experienced peace without it, I still find I want to hold on to it? This doesn't make logical sense to it. Well, it's because you're not the one wanting to hold on to it. It's simply the conditioned patterns that aren't quite ready to let it go yet. So, when that feeling comes up, I want to hold on to this, can you invite it to tea? Can you invite it into this space where, oh, right, there's a part of me that's still afraid to let go. All right, let me be with that part of me that needs what? My interest in trying to get rid of it, or my love? This process is actually quite simple. The circumstances that come up are complex. They come from all different places. They have all sorts of nuances and subtleties to it, but the actual process of dissolving them is very simple and very straightforward. Can you invite whatever it is that comes up into this space of unconditional love? And a part of me still wants to hold on to it. Okay, well, just like I said with David and the camera, okay, hold on to it. Hold on to it for as long as you want to hold on to it. I'm not going to force you. As long as you need that for comfort, I'm not going to force you to let go of it. As soon as you're ready to let go of it, I know you will. So let me make it just so safe and easy for you that I'm not creating any obstacles to you letting it go. As long as I'm safe for you, I know I'm not the one that's making you afraid that wants to hold on to it. And in that environment, I can actually talk to it. Go, well, what is it you're afraid of? What's going to happen if you let go? And believe me, if you are safe for that energy, you'll find it'll tell you. One of two things will happen. It'll tell you what it is, or it'll let it go, because it doesn't need to hold on to it anymore. Because the only thing it was making hold on to it was you trying to force it not to. And if you've ever seen people holding on to something with somebody else trying to get it from them, just look at little kids. No! and so just let it hold on. So hold on, go ahead. I'm just going to sit here and let you do it. Whatever it is wants to hold on, put that on your altar. Make that something sacred. Make all of these things sacred. Our lives, all the events of our lives can be regarded as sacred. And wouldn't it be great to come to the end of your life and find and have made everything up to that point a sacred moment for you? Because they are. Because every moment is pregnant with the opportunity for awakening. And every moment that is honestly and heartfeltly deal with is an awakening. All contributing to that the ultimate big blast of Buddhahood. Everybody's sending you love, Joyce. I'll appreciate responses. Oh, Joyce says thank you to everyone. David Yeager, what in the world? Nobody knows? But the fundamentalists and extremists will tell you they do, and you better go along or else. I do have an altar, and I'll put it on there, thanks. Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Yes, you grew up in a very extremist household that did not want to have one little bitty bit of human feeling allowed. So everything was turned into a sin. Everything was criticized. Everything was judged. Everything was punished. I mean, not even just, judgment. You can at least deal with somebody's judgment. I mean, punished, ostracized, criticized, humiliated. Yes, you got it bad, son. But not to worry. You can now give yourself that honoring. That takes the shape, right now, that self-honoring takes the shape of the camera. So you don't have to sell it. Honor it. Because you're honoring yourself. You're honoring your experience. You're honoring your own memories. The stuff in your life that has made you who you are and brought you to the door of awakening. So, put it on the altar. Yay, lovely. I try to make altars, but I've been moving around some. Hopefully, the move after the next, I've got 2 weeks somewhere, and then I go into my place, and I really think I'm going to stay there for a while. It's got a beautiful view of the lake, and the lady I'm renting it from is very, very nice. She even gives me haircuts, so I think it's going to work out for something a little bit more long term for me, which would really be nice, because I have moved a lot over the last 8 years now. Yeah, well, it's 9 really. Really, starting like in June of 2015. Wow. So, yeah, it's time to settle for a moment, isn't it? Thanks for the answer. Interesting. I don't see the connection between the two questions. Yes, letting go is about the memories. First, I should validate that it happened. Yes, you have to first be the empathetic witness. Then tell her, now we are safe, and keep repeating that till I feel that it is all released, right? Yes. Just rinse and repeat. Just keep reassuring the little girl that you are safe and that you are doing everything you can to make it even safer for her. Because remember, she's just an aspect of you. The inner child thing. They're a disowned part of ourselves. And we have many, many disowned parts of ourselves. I think you nailed it for me. My father betrayed me. I trust him, and it was legitimate. Yeah, of course you're supposed to trust him. It's our nature to trust him. As a matter of fact, that's why it is so traumatic when our parents turn out to be untrustworthy, because nothing in nature says that should be. The body has no way of dealing with it. I mean, look at every other critter on the planet. The relationship between the parent and the child is absolute. And they give them absolutely everything. I mean, elephants carry their children inside of in their womb for 22 months, for crying out loud. So, yeah, so just keep telling her, just keep telling her, just keep telling her, just keep telling her. Yes, you were betrayed. You were betrayed, but I'm not going to betray you. I did the best I could, and now I'm going to do more. Of course you feel this way. It was wrong. It was unnatural. It's completely out of keeping with the laws of God and the laws of nature. So, yes, just keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. God is your father. Yes, Allah is your father. That's your true father. And Kanon is your mother. Nazarene says, I got it. Very good. Very good. Savvy Stacker says, reminds me what they say in AA. When you point a finger at someone else, you have three pointing back at you. Yes, indeed. Hard pill to swallow in the beginning. Still tough at times. Yes. Yes, it is. What I long for, throw myself between the life hand and trust. It's hard, especially deeply, the thing that hearts long for trust. Well, this is how you're bringing about the trust, by integrating back into you all the parts of you that aren't trusting, because they didn't have a reason to trust. So you're now giving them the reason to trust. And in giving them the reason to trust, they are coming to trust God, because who's God other than you? Consciousness, our that sense of being that I pointed at during the meditation, the sense of my own being, that's God. When you talk about the prophets and the saints and the sages and the mystics, that's what when they said God, that's what they meant. Your own very consciousness is God. That's what they meant. Now others heard that and interpreted that from their point of view of God being this other, this super being that was watching everything and punishing you and rewarding you, but mostly punishing you because you couldn't possibly measure up, and governing every aspect of your life and telling you what to do, is this external being. And the mystics all got in trouble. Why? Because they said, no, that's not God. Christ even said that to them. You don't worship God, you worship the devil. Because if you worship God, you'd recognize me. He said, I and my Father are one. No wonder they wanted to get rid of him. He was a complete threat to the entire system. Because why? Because God is your very own consciousness. It's your very own heart. It's your very own life. It's your very being, closer than your breath. You can't even say close, because close implies some degree of distance. There's no distance. None whatsoever. You are that. You are God and God is you. And there's nothing other than that. Or you could say there is God and there is no me. There's nothing but God. And God is nothing other than your consciousness. So every time you bring a part of you into trust of you, you're bringing a part of you into trust of God. Which is, whether we recognize it or not, always taking care of us. God is your life and God is eternal. So life can never, ever truly be lost. Only our sense of life can go through various stages and of development. But the life is unchanging. It's timeless. It's dimensionless. If you really want to know what the actual quantum fields are, they are consciousness. They are the nature of consciousness. There's not 17 of them. There's only one. Savvy Stacker, LOLGP, first time making it, so we shall see. I would gladly share it with you if you were here with a cup of tea. Yes. Oh my, how wonderful. Yes, that's unfair. My sister and her partner used to run a commercial bakery, and they make all sorts of I can't wait for holidays or whenever I ever go to see them and they get something really special because they've always whipped up something. So yeah, that is my one of my joys. I do like food. Love you, Joyce. More love coming out for you, Joyce. May be healthy and peaceful. May be free. David and Elaine. There seems to be a disconnect between knowing that there is no separate person who is in control and the body, which doesn't seem to have gotten the memo. The intense feelings that can rise up in response to life suggest the body reacts as if it is in or needs to control the flow of life. Guessing the integration of these two opposing positions is where peace lies. Yeah, I think you've said it, as always, you guys have said it correctly. On an absolute level, we can regard the whole body-mind complex as one thing. It is one thing that is obeying its internal rules of conditioning and the like. And part of that is the creation of a separate self. Not that it actually created a real separate self, but it created the concept of a self, then believes that that self is what it was. And so everything within the body-mind complex orbits around this single concept of who I am, which is why in Zen it is such a powerful statement of coming to know who you actually are. Coming to know who you actually are, which I know you guys do. The next step then is the process of integrating all of this together, right? Because we can't. You can look at it in terms of the body, the mental process, or the mind, the mental processes, which are following the pattern, and you can also look at it in terms of the body, which is also following the pattern. Now, in the body, you have things that are much more energetic. It's where programmed responses and conditioning lives. You can also use the term, if you like the psychological terms better, there's the conscious and the subconscious. There's the conscious of what we're aware of, and there's the subconscious of what we're now aware of. You talk to psychologists, 95% of what we experience is in the subconscious or the unconscious, which is the realm of the body, the realm of soma, as I like to say. And so, yes, you can have a desire for something that is obviously beneficial to yourself and the whole world, and there'll be a resistance to it. Why? Well, there's some kind of a disconnect between what's going on in my mind and my conscious awareness and what's going on in my body as a reactive pattern. Because it sees this thing that I desire and says, there's danger. My mind sees it and says, this is wonderful, I should be doing it. Now I want you to notice something really, really important. There's another element there. There's an element there that is aware of both the mind and its desires and its interests, and of the body and its desires and its interests. And oftentimes the mind and the body see the world very, very differently. In the body there may be danger everywhere, or in the mind I don't see anything at all. What's the problem? And vice versa. I've had some instances where when I went into my body I found that my mind was afraid of something and my body wasn't. You go, what's the problem? There was no conditioning there. It was all in thought. So it can go in both directions, but the most important thing for everyone to notice is that there's another element there, which is the discerning conscious awareness. That's the real you. It's that which is discerning the difference between. Because if that wasn't there, we would be lost in the condition. We'd be nothing other than the conditioning. We'd be nothing other than this separate self, which is born, goes through all sorts of changes, and then dies. Life would end if that's all there was to it. But there's this other element there. The conscious awareness, the loving awareness, the discerning eye, the Buddha eye. the Buddha land. There's all sorts of names for it, but it is the discerning wisdom. It's prajnaparamita. It's the wisdom that takes you to the other side. It's the wisdom that recognizes the absolute truth. It's the wisdom that can tell the difference between the absolute truth and a relative truth. It can tell the difference between a convention that is harmless and a belief convention that's harmless and a belief that causes suffering. There's an eye there that can tell the difference, and it's the eye of truth. It's the flaming sword of truth, the two-edged sword which cuts. Truth cuts it to the core. Love unifies it. And so you are, little by little, each one of these opposites that comes up, you're loving it back into wholeness. You're loving it out of its position. And the only reason it's in that position, in opposition, is because it is convinced that there's some danger on the other side of this, and so it just digs in its heels. I'm not going there. We're not doing this. And what can you do? Can you fight it? Absolutely not. It always wins. If you fight, you lose. So instead, what do? You love. What does GP talk about? Love. What else is there to talk about? It's all love in every one of its aspects, in every different way it can come. Whether it's down getting dirty or it's pristine and up in the heavens, it's always the same. I prefer the kind that's down and dirty, right? I mean, Jesus was accused of being a drunkard, so obviously he liked his wine. So is that answer it for you, David? Is that fill in any blanks? Oh, there's P.S. from Germany. Haven't been here for a long time. Feels calming to be here again. Very good, very good, very good. Ava, where can we find one beautiful meditation made by you a long time ago? And that is about, the moment between lives. Make me great for Joyce and for everyone, I suppose. I love this meditation but can't find it. If you put the moment between lives in YouTube, I think it's still up there. And if not, I can prepare something. I've got it somewhere, somewhere amongst all of my things. Yeah, that is a really good one for anyone that's at a stage of life, any stage of life, anytime you want to come to terms with the fact that this is simply a letting go. Death is not an end, it's simply a letting go. But thank you for that, Eva. That's very, very thoughtful. Are you all on my mailing list? If not, please send an email. Just get one of the free things on my website, and you'll end up on my emailing list, and I can, fill people in on where things are. I don't think I've made it. Or send an email to me at support@omschool.ca. Let's see if I've got that up here anyway. Well, I've got that, so it's support@omschool.ca. And I see those. Leave that up there for a second. And I guess I should put this up too. A lot of these questions that people have, I do private sessions. There's only so much I can answer in a forum like this with chat and just, speaking into a camera, which I don't mind when it's live. But I tell you, sometimes I don't want to make any videos, just because I don't want to speak to a camera. I want to speak to you. I want to speak to the people who are there. So if something is really troubling you, something is really struggling, please. I have a graduated scale of very reasonable prices. I don't charge a lot for private sessions, but if you go there, you can book a session for me and basically pay what you can. And if you can't even pay what's there, please let me know. We'll work something out. So there it is, omschool.ca/om-sessions. Back to comments. Let's see here. Ella, hello Ella. I didn't believe there were 17 quantum fields either. How do you even come up with a number when numbers don't even exist? Well, it's mathematical. It's based on the standard model. It's very complex. I don't claim to understand it. I understand just enough so I can get what they're pointing at and enjoy the mystery of the whole thing and see exactly how close they're getting. You can't get much closer without having to drop the material model at all. And there are a few scientists out there who are actively promoting a consciousness-only model of the universe instead. That the substratum of the universe is consciousness, not matter. That matter evolved from consciousness. That it is, in fact, the essential field. And the way they come up with it is simply the math. Based on, it's the mathematics based on the various quantum mechanics, and also the standard model to explain each one of what are the elemental particles, which aren't particles at all. They're waves in the field. And something excites the field, which is stable. It's also non-spatial, by the way. They recognize that it exists all places at all times. It doesn't exist in space and time. But then something excites it, a wave takes place, and that's what we know of as the universe. It's pretty amazing, really. Carl, GP, I've heard you say that there was no childhood. I started to understand this, feel this, so that would mean all the good things that didn't happen, all the way to the bad things, and it's an accumulation of these events that make up our personality. Ooh. Another reason why I like to do private sessions is so I can clarify these things, because when I'm speaking in a group like this, like when I was talking to David and Elaine, I was speaking from the point of view of the absolute, and then kind of boiled it down into the relative. If I speak to the point of the absolute, there's been no lives, there's been no past lives, there's no childhood, there's no age, there's no death, there's no birth. Nothing exists at all, right? But now that sounds very strange to the mind, because what then is all of this? Well, all of this is emptiness made manifest. So childhood as an entity in and of itself is not a thing, but if I ignore that, I'm trying to live in the absolute. And if you try to live in the absolute, you're going to get the hot soup poured on your lap all the time, because it's not real. Duality and non-duality are not two. The genuine non-duality is not one or the other. It is that everything is the one. The one self made manifest as all things, and all things are not an entity or a substance in and of themselves. They are an appearance of something else, like a hologram or something. But even that doesn't cover it, because everybody talks about holograms now in simulations and the matrix and all that sort of stuff. So it's become noise. It's lost any value it had as a metaphor, because it is only a metaphor. The mind cannot conceive of oneness. So if I was to say to somebody, there is no childhood, I would be speaking very much in the absolute to somebody who could grasp it in the absolute. And I would probably not say that in polite company. I certainly would not say it in any company that aren't people who aren't ready to explore true non-duality at that level. But that means that exploring it at that level means they are not ignoring their human lives. They're living their human lives as an ordinary human being, dealing with all the things that ordinary human beings deal with, feeling everything that we ordinary human beings feel, not discounting or diminishing or dismissing anything. Only then can you truly grasp true non-duality. Right? And so the personality is simply made up of experiences. It's made up of a particular character. that every individual form that arises in the quantum field, if you like, has its own energetic signature. It's got its own character. You're different than I am, Carl. and always will be until Carl is no more, until GP is no more. Everybody here is absolutely, totally unique. So you have this uniqueness, and when this uniqueness appears in the world, it has to deal with a culture which doesn't want you to be unique. Cultures require conformity. They require similarity. They require things to be the same. And we don't say we all crave things to be the same and not change. And this intermix between who you really are, the real nature of the self-expression, which is based on who you really are, which is the infinite non-spatial reality, it takes on these various kinds of characteristics, some of which are productive and constructive, some of which are quite destructive. And part of the awakening process is dismantling all of that, dismantling the persona, the personality, to see the personality is not who I am. It's just this collection of ideas and thoughts and experiences and programs and conditionings and all sorts of stuff that make up a conventional way of behaving, a consistent way of behaving, but that's not what I am. That's how I appear. That's not what I am. And this is the true meaning for me of non-duality. It's this vacillation between our human experience and the divine reality. Human experience, divine reality. And every little gradation in between. Divine reality, we can sit there for a moment and we can ponder it, but then we go back into our human experience, where that divine reality becomes made manifest as the ordinary human being. Does that help you, Carl? If not, I'm sure you'll tell me. You can't find it on YouTube there already. Orange 3. My tea must be cold by now, but happy to join you late. Well, I had homemade lemonade today, so I must be getting close to the end. Oh, we got a little bit of time left. Paula says, I really enjoyed your remedy for negative thoughts yesterday. Ah, very good. I hope that got a lot of opens. You know, they tell you to pay attention, the right subject matter for getting opens and the like. And I had one that had 80% open rate, which is like unheard of, right? 80% of people actually opened the email. Actually, I have a very good rate. I average around 30%, which is actually high for this field. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 80%, where did that come from? I have no idea. I do my best to try to do what the marketing people tell me to do, but wow. I just don't get it. So I'm really glad you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun writing it. And there'll be more like that. I really want to focus attention on helping people to become whole and healthy and free. Free mostly. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. No more paying attention to bitchy mind. Amber Yu. Hi, G. It's been a couple of years since I've joined live. Glad to be here. So glad you're here. Don't be a stranger. Oops. Sorry, didn't mean to show that. Come on in. Amber, you said something in the Tapathon recently about if we do this inner work without a vision for our lives, the mind keeps finding more problems. I can relate to that and would love to hear more. There's resistance to setting goals and having a vision for my life, and I also feel like the inner work, and it also feels like the inner work is endless. And it will be. Right? Why are you doing you do have a vision, right? And at least, at a bare minimum, the vision is to be free. And what does that mean? To be free of fear, be free of worry, be free of self-doubt, be full of confidence, feel whole. That's what it's for. So, yeah, I did a program about a year ago called the Coherence Process, which was a different approach to trying to finding a vision and setting goals for your life. Because it is important. It is actually important. But you can feel there's a resistance to it. So that's where I would put my attention. Oh, I want to set this goal because I really do want this. The desire is legitimate. It's a good desire. It's kind. It benefits everyone that it comes for. Why is there resistance to it? So now the inner work becomes, well, why is there resistance to it? What is it in me here that feels that the achievement of this would in some way hurt me? Because that's the only reason. Remember, it's only trying to keep you safe. That's it. That's all it does. It's not out to get you. It has nothing against you having fun and the like, unless the way you have fun poses what it believes to be a threat. And when I say what it believes, what I'm talking about is the underlying energetic assumptions, the conditioned, the programmed response that all got put into place because when you did reach for some kind of vision before, it got smashed. I mean, vision gets smashed in our culture all the time. They want you to subscribe to a fundamentalist religion, a particular economic vision, a particular political system. All of these things are a way to try to commandeer what is actually a very individual and personal decision. What do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do with this human life? And it's quite legitimate to ask that question. So you ask that question, and then whatever comes up, right? Well, I'd like to, I don't know, I'd like to write a book. Maybe it's not that maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe I'd like to take up knitting, right? And there'll be a feeling, oh, you can't do that. You need to spend time doing it. You got to do more work. And you say, oh, I have to spend more time doing inner work. Well, then obviously the inner work has become my life, which means my mind is just going to produce more things for me to do. So it's time for me to take a little time for me and just give some time to it. Even if it's resist, say, thank you, I know you're just trying to keep me safe. That's all you're trying to do. But I'm going to just give a little time to this vision here. Even a tiny, tiny one. But you're not denying the resistance. No, you're trying to push it and make it go away. You're just saying, okay. Okay, I get it. You don't like doing it, but let's do this and let's see if it's as bad as we think it. If it is, I'll stop, of course. But what if it's not that bad? What if it's okay? What if it's all right for me to have this? And maybe it's all right to have this other vision too. And maybe it's okay to have this vision too. Because eventually what you want to have happen is everything that's now resisting you recognizes that it's safe. And all that energy going into resisting now goes into fulfilling. There's nothing wrong with having a vision for your life. It does not contradict non-duality. Nothing human contradicts non-duality. If it did, there must be something wrong with non-duality. If the truth can't explain everything, then it's not the truth. If it can't be the theory of everything, then it's not the truth. Because if it has to explain certain things away, ignore certain things, or carve out a little territory over here, well, then it's only true here. It's not the truth. I don't know how I got off on that. I forgot how. But anyway, Amber says, yes, to be free, that's exactly it. I feel fully devoted to it and don't really have any other desires. Okay, well then to be free is your desire. That's it. That is your goal. I did a kind of a VIP, a bigger program for people. Bigger being much, much longer, a lot more of my attention and more expensive. And one of the people in there, that was their only desire. That was their vision, to go free. So that's what we focused on. What does that mean to go free? All right? And the inner work is a concomitant to going free. You can't go free by doing inner work. It frees up inner resources. But freedom is not dependent upon the inner work that we do or not. If it was, it wouldn't be free, would it? It would have a dependency. And freedom has no dependencies. It can't, otherwise it isn't free. So, that's an interesting one for everyone to ponder. David and Elaine, thanks, G, is usually wonderfully answered. Oh, thank you. Going into these sensations of the body can make them become even bigger, at least initially, but then can dissolve with the realization that the feelings and emotions can't harm us, for only our reactions and attachments to them. Love from us both. Perfect. Perfect. You always articulate it so well, guys. Amber says, thank you. Oh, you're very welcome. Carl says, this lemonade lemonade with G today is exceptionally sweet. Thank you. Thank you all. Well, any other questions? Or is it time for me to have my lunch? I'll give it a moment, because I know there's a bit of a delay between here and YouTube. And those of you who may have tried to get on Facebook, we're having technical difficulties with Facebook. The service I'm using, it can't stream to Facebook for some reason. It'll create the event, but then lock us out. So I don't know what's happening with that. But at any rate, so love you too, Brent. Oh, yeah, Brent. I've just shortened your name from Brent French to Brench. Nazarene, thank you. You're welcome, Nazarene. You're very welcome. Lovely, 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 lovely. All right then. No more questions. I guess I've exhausted the audience for today. As usual, I say the same thing over and over again, only with different words, and that is love. Just love, love, love. That's all there is to it. Learn what love is. Embody it in your life as much as you possibly can. It starts with love for yourself, but it doesn't end there. So, thank you all. I do love you all. See you next time.